الله ربنا هو الإله، له من الأسماء ما اصطفاه، الواحد الحي كذا المليك، والملك المالك لا شريك. الله ربنا هو الإله، له من الأسماء ما اصطفاه، الواحد الحي كذا المليك.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لبيك اللهم لبيك، لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك، إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. لبيك اللهم لبيك، لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك، إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. لبيك اللهم لبيك، لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك، إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد، الله الصمد، لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر صدق الله العلي العظيم.
بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Respected elders, scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In our discussion about the rituals and the spiritual aspect of Hajj, we said that this is a duty which is a once in a lifetime experience which has the power to transform ourselves totally, and the conditions which make it necessary and obligatory that we should be in good health, able to perform the rituals, we should be financially capable, no restrictions for travel. And we discussed the rituals and spiritual of visiting the holy city of Medina, and then we began the journey to go to Hajj through the process of Umrah by going to the miqat and entering into the state of ihram. And in the state of ihram, we said that we need to take off the stitched clothing, wear the unstitched dress, number one. Number two, we make the niyyah, and number three, we pronounce the talbiyah. We came and stopped there. There was just one clarification I forgot about the holy city of Medina, and that is the rule about prayer, salah, in the holy city of Medina and also in the holy city of Mecca, whether it is a full prayer or it is half prayer because we're travelers. The fatwa of the mujtahids is that we have a choice basically. Even if we stay there for less than 10 days, we have the choice between praying full tamam or qasr. That is assuming we are there for less than 10 days. But if we are there either in Mecca or in Medina for more than 10 days, there is no choice. It must be tamam. There's a difference of opinion where does this choice apply, but the important rule that you should know is that according to Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani, may Allah protect our Maraja, he says this choice between full prayer and half prayer applies to the whole city of Medina, whether it is the old city of Medina at the time of the Prophet, let's say, which was up till Baqi', or no, it is the modern expanded city of Medina. The choice applies everywhere. Marhum Ayatollah Khoi Rahmatullah alayhi, he says no, this choice applies only to the old city of Mecca and Medina. And this choice between praying half or full applies to any day of any number of days that you plan to stay in Medina. So let's say you stay there for 6 or 7 days, less than 10 days. One day you can pray full, the other day you can pray half, doesn't matter. The choice is for every day. You decide how to pray. In fact, on a single day, you can have 2 different prayers. One double prayer, Dhuhrain, you decide to pray full, But Maghribain you pray half, you have that choice. In fact, that choice also applies to every prayer. So Asr you can pray full, Dhuhr you can pray half, you have the choice. And the important thing is to realize, why is it that though we are not there for 10 days, we are less than 10 days, yet we are given the choice to pray full prayers. Perhaps the reason is that in one sense this is our fatherland or our motherland. The Quran introduces the wives of the Prophet that they are your mothers. By implication, therefore, the Prophet is your father. So this is, in a spiritual sense, this is our fatherland. He is the spiritual father of the Ummah. And also notice that for those of us who develop spiritually and therefore follow the Prophet in his Sunnah, we become spiritual sons to the Prophet. So it becomes spiritually our fatherland. And besides, we keep on praying every day in the dua after the Maghrib prayers that وَجِوَارِ نَبِيِّكَ sallallahu alayhi wa I seek from you, O Lord, the neighborhood and the proximity of the Holy Prophet. So basically that is our spiritual homeland. So we were discussing the rules about Hajj, and we said Hajjatul Islam is made up of the lesser pilgrimage, Umratul Tamattu', and the bigger pilgrimage, the Hajj Tamattu'. And the Umratul Tamattu' is made up of 5 wajib parts. Part number 1 is to enter into the state of Ihram, but not anywhere, only at the designated place, which is called the miqat. And once we are in the state of Ihram, then some things become haram. Just like fasting, once you begin the state of fasting at the time of Fajr, then some things are haram. Just like Salah, once you make Takbiratul Ihram, then certain things become haram, they break your prayer. Likewise, Ihram has got certain restrictions. Before we can engage in the next obligatory part, the Tawaf and the Salatul Tawaf and the Sa'i and the Taqsir, we need to observe the rules regarding the restrictions and the prohibitions in the state of Ihram. And this is mentioned in the Quran in Surah Baqarah, ayah number 197, where Allah says, Al-Hajju Ashhurun Ma'lumat. Hajj can only be done not any season and any time you want. That lesser pilgrimage you can do anywhere, anytime you want, the Umrah. But the bigger pilgrimage, the Hajj, must be performed in the specific months, which are Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah. So in the month of Shawwal, we can enter into the state of Ihram for Hajj by starting with the Umrah, no problem. فَمَنْ فَرَضَ فِيهِنَّ الْحَجَّ, the Quran says. So if you decide now to enter into the state of Ihram for the sake of Hajj, in Shawwal or Dhul Qa'dah or Dhul Hijjah, then فَلَا رَفَثَ وَلَا فُسُوقَ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. Then in the Ihram of Hajj, some things become haram. So for example, no sexual contact, no vicious, sinful talk, no dispute and argumentation. 3 examples are mentioned, but the number of restrictions definitely are much more than that. So according to the Sunnah and the explanation of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and most of the Muslims do agree with that, the restrictions are 26 items are prohibited in the state of Ihram. In order for convenience, I have divided into alphabets A, B, C, D, E. So we have prohibitions under the category of affectionate behaviors. We have prohibitions under the category of beautification, prohibitions under the category of clothing, prohibitions that could be labeled as defense activities, and prohibitions which are ethical. So the first category, affectionate behaviors which are haram in the state of Ihram. So looking at na mahram, a member of the opposite sex, but looking at them with lust, of course, is haram. Touching them, for the male to do so to the female, for the female to the male. Touching and beyond touching. All of this become haram in the state of ihram. But before I continue, we celebrated the birth anniversary of the 8th Holy Imam, Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, alayhi salam. So I would like to quote a hadith about the significance of these prohibitions in the state of ihram. Imam alayhi salam says that إِنَّ النَّاسَ إِذَا أَحْرَمُوا نَادَاهُمُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. When you enter into ihram and you pronounce labbaik, Allahumma labbaik, when you make that intention to enter into ihram, then Allah calls out to His slaves. عِبَادِي وَإِمَائِي, my male and my female slaves and creatures. لَأُحَرِّمَنَّكُمْ عَلَى النَّارِ كَمَا أَحْرَمْتُمْ لِي. Your decision to enter into the state of ihram, whereby some things which are halal, you are making it haram on yourself. Some things which are haram before ihram, you continue to consider it haram in ihram. If you do that for the sake of obeying my command, to win my pleasure, to avoid my displeasure and punishment, then I will protect you and make haram for you the fire of hell. Meaning that this is a spiritual discipline to develop within us a protection from sinful behavior which will lead us to the fire of hell. Enter into ihram and you won't go to the fire of hell. So hidden behind these rituals of ihram are the spiritual protection from the fire of hell. Affectionate behavior which is haram in the state of ihram can be lustful activity with your own legal spouse, haram, we'll discuss that, or lustful activity with a prohibited partner, he or she is not your mahram, and this is haram as it is even before ihram, but becomes doubly haram in ihram, and therefore the penalty is stricter. And yes, there are certain activities which are without lust, whether it's with your legal or prohibited partner. So the affectionate behavior, lustful activity with your legal spouse, I will not talk about the higher levels, I'm talking about the lower levels. Touching, for example, to touch and beyond, to touch your legal partner, married partner, with lust, no, not allowed, haram. And if you do so purposely, not accidentally, purposely, continuously, persistently, there's a kafara. A penalty is you have to sacrifice a goat, even if it doesn't lead to excitement and culmination. Lesser than touching is a lustful look at your legal spouse, haram. And if somebody does that, there's a kafara, and the kafara is, oh, this is a serious kafara. If a person looks in a lustful way continuously till it leads to excitement and culmination, there's a high penalty for that, a camel. What if somebody says, no, I look with lust, but it doesn't excite me, doesn't lead a person to the culmination? No, even that is haram. However, if a person accidentally, he had a look, but it wasn't a lustful look, yet it led to excitement unexpectedly, normally it shouldn't have happened, but it did happen, no problem. That does not warrant a penalty. So this was with lust and a legal partner. So touching is haram, and there's a penalty of a goat. The interesting thing about touching is, as many number of times you touch, as many number of goats you have to pay. So normally in other prohibitions, we will come later on and see, if you violate the prohibition throughout the ihram, you can do it a second time or a third time. It's sinful, but the penalty is only once, one goat. Touching is different. Suppose somebody touches his or her legal spouse without lust, but during the touch it becomes lustful. So let's say this is husband and wife, they're doing the tawaf together and they're holding hands. It's a honeymoon tawaf. During the tawaf, lust enters the mind. So this is haram. Haram. Immediately the person must remove the hands, stop the touch. If you don't, there's a goat. Unless you say, no, this was just a fleeting passing thought, I control it and I am out of lust, then there's no problem. But you say, Shaykh, this is tawaf. There are all types of people there. I must protect my harim. Harim is the word that we were taught in the Arabic, if you remember. She is my haram. It's haram for anybody else. If you don't allow me to touch her, others will touch her. I have to hold her. No, sorry. You are here in a sanctuary. You are here in the presence of God. That doesn't justify a touch which can become lustful. A non-lustful touch, there's no problem. Alright, so you're telling me I'm not allowed. But suppose there's an emergency. Suppose she falls down and I try to help her. During help, I touch her. During touch, emergency touch, lust begins. What do? Shaitan, la'natullah alayh. Even near the Kaaba is there. No problem. If it's emergency, if you don't touch, to touch with lust, haram. To leave a woman in distress without help, haram. Between two harams, you go for the lesser haram so that you can help the lady. This is with a partner or person of the opposite sex with whom you are not married. He or she is a prohibited partner, not mahram. To look at such a person, haram, with lust of course. Before ihram, haram. After ihram, more so. And if a person does so, then if it leads to excitement, the highest penalty. Pay a camel. A camel can be several hundreds of dollars worth. You say, my God, I don't have that much money. No problem. There's a reduction. You pay a cow. Hey, a cow is expensive also. No problem. If you truly, genuinely cannot afford, forget all your gifts that you wish to buy. This is haram, penalty must be paid. Genuinely you say, no, I can't pay. Then yes, a goat is allowed. But the point is this is so serious a prohibition. If a person just looks with lust and ends up in sin, there's a heavy penalty for that. But you look with lust, haram, but it doesn't lead to excitement and to culmination, no problem. There's no penalty, but there's a sin. It's haram nevertheless. So I'm not talking about touching. Touching is worst with an illegal partner and beyond touch. Beyond touch makes forget it being sinful, forget there being a penalty. In addition to the penalty, the Hajj is batil. Come back next year, redo your Hajj. So I'm not talking about that level. I'm starting from the beginning, just the look and the touch. Conclusion: avoid looking with lust because there's a heavy penalty. In fact, avoid touching with lust, even if you say you are not going to get excited, because for every touch there is a separate goat to be paid. Why is the Sharia so strict? Again, the reason is disciplining. Imam Rida alayhi salam said, God announces, if you avoid these prohibitions for my sake, but she's a halal spouse. Yeah, she was haram before marriage. I made it halal for you by marriage. I made the relationship between the two of you haram during the monthly periods. I decide when yes and when no. I need to discipline. We're living in a society, unfortunately, and a culture where there is bombardment of sexual messages, whether it's the media, whether it is the internet, whether it's the television, or unfortunately society with the freedom. You get the advertisements everywhere. The messages are the same. They are provocative. They are trying to excite and stimulate. And therefore it's very important to develop the habit of control and not to lose control. And this is one of the spiritual exercises and disciplines to let us learn to control. In the Quran, Allah says the human being has been created weak. When Allah discusses sexual rules, towards the end, Allah says, وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. As far as sexual desires are concerned, if you're not careful, you are weak, you're easily vulnerable to shaitan. Not only to the jinn shaitan, but to the human shaitan also. And therefore, if you remember in that hadith of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam to Shibli, when you entered into ihram, did you make the niyyah that حرمت على نفسك كل محرم حرمه الله عز وجل? Sexual prohibitions are an example. In the ihram, did you make the determination that for the sake of God, what He makes halal, if I consider it haram for His sake, that means I've trained myself to control myself even from sinful, just like fasting. To eat and drink is halal, but from Fajr till Maghrib, I make the halal haram to train myself that when I come across haram, I will not touch it. The second category is prohibitions which we can label as beautification. So the application of the eyeliner, the surma, looking into the mirror for beautification, applying oil and cream, the use of perfume and fragrance, nail cutting and trimming as part of beautification, hair trimming and hair removal as part of trimming, as part of beautification. Basically any other act of self-beautification. In the state of ihram, haram. So let us look at these prohibitions a little more into detail. I'm skipping this kuhl or the eyeliner application because maybe it is not so much in prevalence right now. But if it is a question and you need to know more details, please alert me and I will explain. Looking into the mirror. In itself, it's mustahab to look into the mirror. When we're not in the state of ihram, mustahab. Look into the mirror, groom yourself, beautify yourself. When you go and meet others, be in a pleasant, presentable way. Mustahab, the Prophet says, and the Prophet used to do that before he would come out to meet the companions. And there's a mustahab dua. We say, Allahumma kama hassanta khalqi fahassin khulqi. Oh Allah, just the way you have beautified my outward physical creation. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most beautiful of all? Everybody likes to make themselves presentable. No problem, it's good. Lakini, oh Lord, more than my physical beauty, enable me to beautify my inner soul, my mind, my character. This is all mustahab. But what is mustahab is now being told to us haram in the state of ihram. Kwanini, I'll explain. So, to look into the mirror for the purpose of beautification, which is otherwise mustahab, now it is haram in the state of ihram. You say, no, I don't want to look into the mirror to beautify myself. I'm a driver, I need to see the traffic, the cars around. I'm a doctor, I need to see certain parts of the patient, which for me is haram to see directly, so I can see a reflection. I wish to perform wudu. I try to remove what I think is blocking the water from reaching my skin, but I just want to make sure that there is no barrier remaining on my skin, so I want to look at myself in the mirror. No problem. If it is not for beautification, then you're allowed to look. What about something which is not a mirror? There's a bus which has been painted with a glossy paint, reflective, shining surface, but not a mirror. Are we allowed to look at that? So I just happen to be passing by a bus and I have a look at myself and I'm appreciating myself. Am I allowed to do that? Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani, may Allah protect our maraji, says no, reflective surface not allowed. Marhum Ayatollah Khoi says allowed. What if I enter a lift or I enter a bathroom or any other place where there is a mirror on the wall? You're allowed to enter the room, but don't look at the mirror. Better to avoid, because that's where the test is. The test is, though you know you're not allowed to watch, but you know there's a mirror and you get these accidental looks going up and down. So better to avoid, but not wajib to avoid entering the room. However, if a person does look at the mirror, not accidentally, purposely, knowingly, haram, plus there's a penalty. The penalty is istighfar, according to some mujtahids, but mustahab to redo the talbiyah, labbaik Allahumma labbaik. But it was mustahab for me to look into the mirror before ihram. But now I've said labbaik, oh my Lord, you say so, I will not look into the mirror. I will not beautify myself. Kwanini? I don't know, maybe sometimes a baby, you have to stop giving it breast milk so that it can start taking higher nutritious food. The baby wants to grow. Milk is not enough now. You stop the lesser to get the higher. Stop the lower to get the higher. Perhaps that's the reason. Forget your own beauty so you can realize a greater beauty. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى. God has got more beautiful names, more beautiful qualities, more beautiful, perfect attributes. Stop thinking about yourself. Start thinking about God now. Perhaps that could be the reason. According to Marhum Ayatollah Khoi, no, looking into a mirror is serious. If a person does it purposely, there's a goat to be paid. Ihtiyat, wajib, as a kafara. Another prohibition in the category of beautification is the application of oil. Nowadays it's more of cream, but in the older traditions it was the use of oil. Oil in the older traditions, even the Holy Prophet ﷺ, the riwayah says his sunnah, he loved to apply different types of oil. He disliked his hair, for example, to be scruffy. He used the oil even on his beard, he used the oil on the eyebrows, the mustache. This is mustahab. But in fact there's a dua, Allahumma inni as'aluka az-zayna waz-zina wal-mahabba wa a'udhu bika min ash-shayni wash-shana'ani wal-maqt. Oh Allah, I beautify myself, I want to decorate myself, I want to make myself presentable. Oh Allah, bring the mahabba between me and my brothers. Oh Allah, I want to avoid anything which distances and disconnects me from my mu'mineen brothers. So it's mustahab to use this for the purpose of beautification. But in ihram, no, haram. So if the oil is eatable oil, edible oil, and if it doesn't have any perfume in it, no problem, we can use that oil. The oil which is prohibited is the oil to apply on the body. That is haram. But you say, no, I've got a skin problem. The doctor has advised me that I must use cream. No problem. If you need it for medical reasons, then you're allowed as an exception to use cream or oil for the skin. What about oil, cooking oil, but which is perfume? Za'faran has been added to it, not spices. Spices are for flavor. Za'faran is for fragrance. Flavoring allowed, fragrance not allowed. So if there is cooking oil which has been fragranced and perfumed, then it depends now. Is this natural? No problem. If it is artificially added perfume to the cooking oil and the food has been cooked in it, you can't eat in the state of ihram that food. But I need it for medical reasons, no problem, you're allowed. But the creams available in the market, all of them have got some little perfume in it. Try to look as much as you can for a plain, odorless, except for the natural smell, odorless, non-fragrant medical cream. If you can't find it, it's necessary, you must use it, you can use it, but then you have to pay kafara. What about lip moisturizers for a dry climate, glycerine, Vaseline? If it is oil-based, no, avoid as much as possible unless it's medically necessary for you to use those oil-based creams. What about using body oil? I haven't yet suffered cracks on my skin, but the doctor advises me that in order for me to be able to perform my Hajj healthily, I need to keep my skin supple in this dry climate. So he's advising me, or she's advising me, the doctor, to use this cream as prevention. Sawa, if it's medically advisable, you're allowed to use it so long as it's not perfumed. If a person uses oil-based creams, applies oil, and there is no medical excuse for it, then there is a penalty. It's sinful, plus there's a penalty, which is a goat. If a person didn't know and accidentally or ignorantly used the cream or the oil, then the kafara is to feed one poor person, not to feed a 16 kg, for example, goat to the poor. What if somebody eats cooked food before they go to miqat and enter into ihram, and that cooked food in the building has a good smell, good scent, and this lingers on till the time we enter into ihram? Hazrat Sistani, may Allah protect our Maraji, he says, no problem, this is allowed, but you should not eat it in the state of ihram. You can eat it before ihram, even if the smell lingers on later on. A fourth item under the category of beautification, which is prohibited in the state of ihram, is perfume, the use of perfume. Perfumes are of two types. You have natural perfumes, naturally fragrant smelling items, versus artificial perfumes. Again, perfume is something which is halal outside ihram. Not only is it halal, it's mustahab. The riwayah says, min sunanil mursaleen. It's a sunnah, not only of the last prophet, of all the prophets, that they applied perfume, min akhlaqil anbiya, that they would apply perfume. Perfume can be from several sources. Animals can be a source, for example, musk or amber. Plants can be a source of perfume, for example, leaves or bark or wood or flower, petals or gum. But these are natural sources. But you could also have mixtures and artificially made perfumes. Either way, so long as it's a perfume, it is haram. So any item, I mentioned examples, any item whereby the body of the person in ihram or the clothing of the person in ihram, or the food which the muhrim or the muhrima is going to eat is fragrance with natural fragrance, for example musk or amber or saffron. No, not only these, even other perfumes like rose and jasmine, basically anything which is considered as a perfume, natural or artificial, is haram. It doesn't matter how you use that perfume, it's haram. Whether you apply it to your body or dress, whether you just smell it, whether you consume and eat it, and whether you dye it on your hair, or you use the bukhur, or you apply it to your dress, any application of any nature or consumption, haram in the state of ihram. Except for one which is unavoidable, and that is the perfume which is applied to the Kaaba when we go for tawaf. If we happen to get the tawfiq to get to the wall of the Kaaba, then we may get that smell, but that smell is allowed. What about flowers? The perfume has not been taken out. No, it's still in the flower. If it is a good scented flower, then to smell that perfume smell of the flower is haram. Except, again, the riwayah says you're traveling in the desert, there are some wild flowers out there, those are halal. Unfortunately, we will be traveling on artificially created roads, and we'll be sitting in an artificially air-conditioned bus, so we won't see these wild desert flowers. What about fruits other than flowers? Any fruit which is a good smelling fruit, for example an apple or mint, herb, mint is a herb, or quince, these are good smelling fruits. You can eat it because an apple is not a natural perfume. It happens to have a good smell, but it's not a perfume. So you can eat it, no problem. But you can't smell it. So you close your nose and you eat your apple, no problem. What about cooking oil? Depends, what type of cooking oil is it? Is it made from an ingredient which is naturally good smelling? If it is not perfumed, no problem. If it is perfumed, eat it but close your nose, no problem. The interesting thing about smelling fragrant scents is that it is haram to smell the fragrant scent, but it is wajib to keep the nose open and haram to close the nose when you come across a bad smell. So in the state of ihram, you are not allowed to hold your nose, but you're allowed to move away from that place very quickly. If you come across a place, let's say you did not apply perfume, but the other person has finished his or her ihram, they've now come for a tawaf, which is mustahab tawaf, and they're applying good perfume. So for you it is wajib to close your nose in the state of ihram. Why is this rule so strict about must close your nose for good smell, must keep your nose open for bad smell? See, Jewy, it is mustahab to apply good smell. One possible reason, the same reason I gave for the other prohibitions of beautification. Ignore the lesser beauty to appreciate the higher beauty, maybe. Or no, realize dunya looks attractive, but inside it is rotten. Don't get into the trap. Learn to know the bad smells of the dunya, to understand that it's only Jannah when you can never ever have any bad smell. Dunya is made up of good and bad. Train yourself to understand. Good is only good if Allah allows you to smell it, but now it's haram. Bad, definitely part of the dunya. Smell it, understand how rotten the dunya can become. Maybe that's the reason in ihram we are supposed to observe these rules. It's a strict rule. If somebody does deliberately smell good fragrant scents, not only is it haram, there is a penalty, and the penalty is one goat. If a person, but only not by smelling. only if you wear a perfumed cloth in ihram, or only if you apply perfume to the clothes, or if you consume the fragrant food, then there is a goat. But smelling doesn't have a penalty. It's haram, but it doesn't have a penalty. Of course, ihtiyat mustahab, to also pay penalty for those cases. What if I put my ihram in the luggage and there was some perfume in the luggage, or there were other perfume clothes in the luggage, so now the odorless ihram became scented. So at the time when I went to the miqat, or just before going to miqat, I suddenly discovered, oh my God, my ihram is perfumed. I didn't want it, but it just happened. What do I do? No, if there has been perfume applied to the ihram, accidentally also, before you enter into ihram, you discover it, no, you can't wear that ihram, sorry. So what do? Go and give it a wash and dry it before you go to the miqat, or go and buy another one. As it is, it's a good idea to have a spare ihram. Same thing about food. A person has eaten fragrant food before ihram, halal, no problem. But then that fragrance is so strong, even when they enter into ihram, that fragrance is still there in the mouth. No, then you must make sure you wash it out, that fragrance from the mouth. In the state of ihram, any type of fragrance not allowed, so any shampoo or soap, or even a cigarette or a cigar which is scented, will therefore become haram, ihtiyat wajib. What if a person forgetfully uses perfume, or no, he didn't even know the rule, not that he forgot the rule. If a person ignorantly or forgetfully uses it, still, the moment the person remembers, or the moment the person learns the rule, ihtiyat wajib, immediately in the state of ihram, must wash away that perfume. Meaning that past mistakes are not an excuse. Throughout every moment in the state of ihram, just like one drop of blood not allowed on the ihram, you must wash it away. So also any scent, accidentally, doesn't matter, you must remove it from the ihram. Rice, good smelling food, cooked, no problem. Rice is not perfume, so you can eat the rice. But if an additional artificial fragrance has been attached, close your nose and enjoy the rice. Spices. Spices are not fragrance, they're not perfumes. Spices flavor the food, enhance the taste of the food, no problem, it's allowed. However, if the spice, in addition to being a flavor, also has got a good scent, a perfume-like scent, then no, haram. What about these tissues that we get, wet wipes for example, which are perfumed and scented? You're not allowed to smell, haram. And if by using the scented tissue, the scent is transferred to the body, haram. If you have done it accidentally, immediately wash it away. This is a serious prohibition, because not only is it sinful to use perfume in whatever way, but in addition to sin, there's a penalty. In addition to penalty, it's a multiple penalty. In a single ihram, you do it twice, you smell or you eat fragrance which is haram, 2 penalties and 2 goats to be given. So it's a serious prohibition. We've gone to the washroom, the previous user had eaten some food on which the bacteria had worked and produced some obnoxious, pungent smells. I can't tolerate. I'd rather not use the toilet, but I can't go to that toilet unless you put an air freshener. No, you are not allowed to put fragrance. But if you do put the fragrance, when you're in the toilet, close your nose and don't smell. Or wait till the freshener cleans the washroom or the room, and then you can use. What if a place has a little good smell and a little bad smell? So I have one Hajji who's finished his ihram, he's applying perfume. I have another Hajji who has not even finished his ihram, he's still in ihram. And incidentally he's sweating. And the sweat is not pleasant. What do? I close one half of my nose towards this Hajji, but I keep my other part of the nose open towards this Hajji. Or I stand up and I walk out. I can't use my half nose. Exhaust fumes. This becomes a problem more so during the bigger Hajj. So I'll come back to this later on. But nevertheless, let's say we came out in the state of ihram from the miqat. We want to board the bus. There's another bus which is spewing out fumes. It should not be doing it. But let's say it's polluting. Anyway, from the miqat till Makkah and inside the city of Makkah, we come across exhaust fumes. Again, considering exhaust fumes as bad smell. Haram to close the nose. You must breathe the bad smelling exhaust fumes. It's haram to stop smelling. But you say, Samahani, I'm a sensitive person. I've got allergies and hypersensitivity and asthma. This will provoke an attack. No, medically you must take protection. As an exception, you're allowed to close your nose. But otherwise, just walk away. Can I wear a mask? No problem, you're allowed to wear a mask if it doesn't block the bad smell. If it just blocks the dust, for example. But if it blocks the bad smell, haram. Unless when you come across the bad smell, lift up your mask, take a few sniffs, and then run away, and then close your mask again. What about a lady in the state of ihram? Is she allowed to use a mask? No. A man is allowed to use a mask if it doesn't block good smell. But a lady is not allowed to use a mask even if it doesn't block good smell or bad smell. Because for a lady, her ihram is her face should be kept open. Unless, of course, for secondary reasons it becomes necessary to. Is there any penalty for smelling? Remember, the perfume penalty is for eating and applying, not smelling. Smelling is sinful, but there's no penalty for that. The next prohibition under the category of beautification I've suggested is nail trimming. Nail trimming is mustahab. Again, the riwayah says it is min as-sunnah of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, that regularly once a week, preferably on Friday, it's mustahab to trim your nails and cut your nails, and that also better to start from the little finger of the left hand to continue and end up with the little finger of the right hand. Mustahab. But in ihram, haram. Kwa nini? Sijui. Maybe the same reason. Avoid the lower beautification so you can appreciate the higher beauty. So any amount of nail cutting, whether it is some nails or all nails, whether it is part of a nail or the whole nail of a finger, no nail cutting allowed in the state of ihram. And it doesn't matter whether you have a good nail cutter or you just use your teeth to cut your nail. Both are haram. However, interesting, you can cut somebody else's nail in the ihram. Of course, that person has to be out of ihram. So let us say you are in ihram and he or she is requesting you to help them cut their nails. No problem, you're allowed to do that. However, if that other person is still in the state of ihram, then no, you're not allowed to help somebody else do haram by cutting their nails. Of course, unless it's a medical necessity. Or no, the nail has grown and it's painful now, to relieve pain which is uncomfortable, we're allowed to cut. This is a serious prohibition for every nail, not all the 10 nails. For every nail, part or full, which has been cut, a penalty of 750 grams of raw food to be given to the needy. But you say, no, it was a medical necessity, or no, it was painful. Doesn't matter. It was haram. It was not sinful now to do it because of medical reasons, but you still pay a penalty of food. If it is for just pain relief, a handful of food, not 750 grams, a handful of food for every nail which was cut. However, if all the 10 nails were cut purposely, deliberately, then a goat has to be paid. Sixth item in beautification, which is prohibited in the state of ihram, is cutting or removing or trimming the hair. Again, trimming the hair, beautifying oneself, the beard, the mustache, the hair of the armpits, the hair in the pubic area, these are all mustahab. But what is mustahab outside ihram temporarily becomes haram in the ihram because this is beautification. So yes, min sunan al-mursaleen. In fact, Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam says to trim your hair is mimma amarahu bihi at-tayyib sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. The embodiment of goodness and beauty, the Holy Prophet, he used to do this. It was his sunnah to trim, but in the state of ihram becomes haram. So you can't remove hair either from yourself in the state of ihram or from another person in the state of ihram. In fact, even from another person who is not in the state of ihram. You in the ihram cannot remove their hair or trim it or cut it. However way you want to remove, whether it's by just plucking, ouch, haram, or trimming or shaving or any other way. I feel like itching, so I want to scratch. No problem. Be very careful how you scratch yourself. You have to learn to fool your skin. Your skin is giving you a message. There's something irritating here. Can you scratch, please? So what you need to do is fool your skin by gently caressing the skin, and the irritation should go away. That is allowed. Or a gentle scratch. A scratch which will not cause the hair fall, allowed, no problem. How much of a hair removal is not allowed? Whether it's the whole of the head or part of the head or even part of a single strand of a hair, not allowed. Of course, necessities are an exception. So somebody is affected by lice, or they are suffering pain and the doctor is suggesting it must be shaved so that we can treat this part of the head, or no, for the sake of wudu, you are wiping your hands and hair falls off. No, that is allowed, no problem, because wudu not only is sunnah, in some cases wudu is wajib. So also ghusl, no problem. Ghusl, which is mustahab, if during the state of ghusl hair falls off, no problem, it's allowed. What about bathing? I don't want to do ghusl, I just want to bathe myself. No problem, you're allowed, but make sure you don't scrub yourself and massage yourself and use the scrubbers to cleanse yourself. No, if it causes hair fall, haram. And it's serious, it's serious. You shave your head in the state of ihram, there's a goat to be paid as a penalty. You shave the hair in the armpit, both of them, no, even a single armpit shaving, a goat as a penalty. You shave the beard, haram, or you shave somebody else's or remove somebody else's hair, then one handful to feed the miskin as a penalty. What about shaving somebody else's hair who is not in the state of ihram, no problem, there's no penalty for that. After Umrah Tamattu, we'll discuss that, so I'm skipping this question. What if a person is doing a mustahab ghusl? No problem, hair falls off. What about combing? I'm going to comb my hair. Incidentally, combing the hair is not haram in the state of ihram. But there's a problem. Problem is, if by combing hair is going to fall off, then you need to be careful. You need to avoid. So there are three situations. I know if I comb, no hair falls off. My hair is strong. I know, no problem, you're allowed to do that if you know it's not going to fall off. I know from past experience, if I comb, hair falls off. I know that. Haram, don't do it. Third scenario. See jewelry, sometimes it falls, sometimes it doesn't fall, depends now. Ihtiyat, avoid if you're unsure. Finally, the seventh item which is prohibited in the state of ihram is under the category of beautification is any other act of self-beautification. So for example, applying henna. Henna for the purpose of beautification, not allowed. If it is for non-beautification and a non-beautifying type of henna, no problem, allowed. What about wearing a ring? If it is for decoration and beautification, haram. If it is for the sunnah of the Prophet, it's just a ring. Mustahab, allowed, no problem. What about jewelry? It depends, jewelry of two types. Some cultures and some traditions, they wear jewelry as part of their normal dress, no problem. But any additional decorative jewelry, no, if it is beautifying. In fact, non-beautifying, ihtiyat, you should avoid, except for the usual customary traditional jewelry which is prevalent in a particular culture. For women, allowed to wear the abaya, but if it is for beautifying purposes, then ihtiyat mustahab, no. Colored lenses, no, it is beautification. Hair dye other than henna, no, because it's a beautifying agent. However, as an exception, if you apply the hair dye before going to the miqat and entering into the state of ihram, let's say here, the last days before you leave, and though the dye is going to remain with you on the hair till you enter into ihram, no problem. Or you apply it in Medina before you go to miqat, no problem. What about setting one's hair after wudu? No problem, allowed. What about wearing goggles? Sun goggles, protection from the sun. If the goggles are not decorative and beautifying, no problem, you're allowed. What about beauty creams? Definitely not. What about pre-ihram beautification, which will remain with the person after ihram? No, except for henna and except for hair dye. Those beautifying activities before ihram, though the effect will remain after entering into ihram, are exceptionally allowed because the hadith allows such things. I stop here and I conclude. Be careful about looking with lust, there's a penalty. Be careful about touch with lust, there's a penalty. Be careful about oil, especially if it's perfume, there's a penalty of a goat. Be careful about using perfume on clothing and consuming the perfume. Serious. Every time you do it, there's a different goat. Nail cutting, goat. Hair cutting, goat. Mirror looking, according to our Sistani, no goat. According to Marhum Akhui, yes, there's a penalty of a goat. I stop here. In conclusion, the prohibitions of ihram are for the purpose of disciplining ourselves. Some things are haram before ihram, doubly haram after ihram. Some things are halal, no, they are mustahab before ihram, but temporarily they become haram, so that we may train ourselves to detach from the lower beauty and prepare for the higher beauty, inshallah. If there are any questions or clarifications that you may want. Yes, please.
What if you smell the bad scent?
Bad scent, yes.
If you just act like an action without looking at it.
So you just frown and show your disgust at the bad smell, but you continue to smell. No problem. It's good, you should feel disgusted, but don't feel disgusted at this bad smell. Feel disgusted at the bad rotting smell of the corrupt dunya, the sinful dunya. That's important. Yes, please. Yes, I'll come to that when I'm discussing the clothing. The next session will be about clothing and the belt. I'll discuss in that, inshallah. Yes, please.
Some medication, for example, if somebody has a sprain,
Yuma. Sorry.
if somebody has a sprain,
Sprain, okay.
and you have to apply a liniment or a cream or a rub
Sour,
for the pain.
sour.
And there are some chemicals, it's a combination of menthol or salicylate.
Yes,
Which
yes.
has got that characteristic smell.
Okay, okay. So long as it is for medical purpose, no problem, it's allowed. But if it has got a perfumed smell, then there is a kafara for that. So it's not sinful to use it for medical reasons, but there is a kafara nevertheless because perfume was used. But if it is cream without perfume, no problem, medically it will be allowed and there will be no kafara.
Chemical has its own characteristics.
Yes, that characteristic smell is of two types. One is perfume-like, one is no, it's a good smell. If it's a good smell, close your nose. If it's a perfume smell, haram. Otherwise, medically allowed, but a kafara.
About the hair.
Hair,
Sometimes you just sleep
yes.
and when you wake up there is
Anything which is unintentional, accidental, ignorantly happening, no kafara, not even sinful. Can we use the spray bottle for wudu? Yeah, no problem, so long as you make sure that the amount of water which is applied to the face and the hands is enough to make the water flow. Can I wear a numbered glasses during ihram, as no ornaments are allowed? If yes, then what if I have the fancy ones only? Medical prescribed spectacles definitely allowed, but you have to make sure that the glasses are not especially beautifying or decorating. So you'll have to use ordinary simple prescription glasses. But if you do not have any other one, you only have the fancy ones, no, you better make sure you know you have this problem that you need to use prescription glasses. So you better make sure right from here you prepare the simple spectacles, or no, once you reach there, before you enter into the state of ihram, you obtain the simple glasses. Yes, last moment you're stuck. For whatever reason, you forgot or you didn't know the rule, and suddenly in the miqat now you're about to say, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, I obey you, O my Lord, I will avoid everything which is haram. Uh-oh. But if I don't wear my glasses, I can't even see who's mahram and who's not mahram. I'll go end up touching the wrong people. No, then as an exception, you're allowed to wear, no problem. Are watches and the use of mobile phones allowed while in the state of ihram, and to take pictures? Taking pictures is allowed. Using of mobile phones, I will mention later on when we discuss the prohibitions of covering. If it covers the ear, haram. Watches, no problem, so long as it's not excessively, it's not specially decorative. It's a simple watch. One final question. Eyebrow threading, facial, before traveling, no problem. If it is done before traveling, no problem. It should not be done during traveling. During ihram. Sorry. Please.
How far sure you are? How many kafaras you have to make? Suppose if you forget,
Yes.
maybe it's 3, 4, or 6.
Okay. Okay.
Situation what you want to do. Do we have to make kafara there and then? Suppose if you don't have enough fish,
Okay.
what do you do?
So, two questions. What if you don't keep count of the kafara and now you are unsure how many kafaras you have to pay? No, this exercise of self-control and self-discipline means that you need to be careful, you need to be mindful, you need to have some sort of record. Your mobile is there with you. Open a special document in there to remind you what are your violations. But let's say for some reason you did not record and now you have forgotten. In that situation, you have to use your best estimate of what could possibly be the number of violations you have done and therefore the number of kafaras you pay. The minimum number. You say, could have been 3 violations. No, maybe 4, maybe 5. 3 I'm sure, can't be less than 3. Maybe 4, 5, can't be more than 5. So the Sharia says what you're sure about, minimum, the lowest number, it can't be lesser than that, 3, must pay 3. Better to pay more but not wajib. Use of toothpaste in ihram. No, if it is perfumed, not allowed. If it has a good smell, close your nose and brush your teeth. No problem. Yes, please. And the second question is where to give the kafara. For the violations of the ihram, of the lesser hajj, the umrah, the place to give the kafara is in Makkah. For the violations of the prohibitions of the ihram of the bigger hajj, hajj al-tamattu', the place is Mina. But for whatever reason, rightly or wrongly, you did not do it in Makkah, no problem, you can do it in your homeland, you're allowed to do so. So let's pray to Allah that we get the tawfiq, that this spiritual exercise of getting nearer to God is first of all to train ourselves to control our halal desires so that we can avoid haram more easily, and for us to train ourselves to avoid the simple, superficial, temporary beauty so that we can appreciate the deeper, higher, more profound, lasting beauty, inshaAllah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.